December 11th, 1941. Every soldier complained about it. Many joked about it. Some swore they never wanted to see it again. Yet without it, entire armies would have stalled, islands would have fallen, and nations might have starved. In World War II, while generals planned battles and admirals commanded fleets, a quiet logistical miracle was unfolding behind the scenes. It wasn't a weapon. It wasn't a vehicle. It wasn't even glamorous. It was a pink, rectangular block of canned meat. This is the story of Spam, and why it became one of the most critical supply items of the Second World War. When World War II erupted in 1939, modern warfare collided with an ancient problem: how to feed millions of people across multiple continents under constant threat of attack. Armies do not move on courage alone, they move on calories. A single soldier in combat requires thousands of calories per day, delivered consistently, regardless of terrain, weather, faith, or enemy action. Multiply that by millions of soldiers scattered across Europe, Africa, Asia, and the Pacific, and food becomes a strategic weapon. Whoever could feed their forces reliably would outlast whoever could not. At the start of the war, refrigeration was a luxury. Cold storage required electricity, heavy equipment, fuel, and safe transport. In combat zones, all of these were scarce. Refrigerated ships were vulnerable, slow, and expensive. Worse, they were prime targets. In the Atlantic, German U-boats were sinking Allied merchant ships at an alarming rate. Britain, an island nation dependent on imports, faced the terrifying possibility of starvation. Fresh meat was one of the first casualties. It spoiled quickly, required cold storage, and took up precious space. This is where Spam entered the war. Spam had been introduced in 1937 by Hormel, just 2 years before the conflict began. It was simple: pork shoulder and ham, ground, seasoned, cooked, and sealed in a can. No refrigeration required, a shelf life measured in years. Compact, calorie-dense, and cheap to produce. Before the war, it was just another processed food. During the war, it became a logistical lifeline. When the United States entered World War II in December 1941, it brought with it something no other nation could match: industrial scale. American factories didn't just produce tanks and planes. They produced food in quantities the world had never seen. Hormel's Spam production exploded. Factories ran around the clock. Millions of cans rolled off assembly lines every week. By the end of the war, over 150 million pounds of Spam had been produced for military use alone. The genius of Spam wasn't taste, it was reliability. Spam could survive long ocean voyages without spoiling. It could be stacked in warehouses, packed into crates, and tossed into trucks without concern. It didn't need ice, power, or special handling. In a war where every ton of shipping space mattered, Spam was efficient. Every refrigerated cargo ship that didn't have to carry meat could instead carry ammunition, fuel, or medical supplies. That single fact made Spam strategically invaluable. Nowhere was this more important than in Britain. By 1940, German U-boats were waging a brutal campaign in the Atlantic. Merchant ships carrying food, fuel, and supplies were being sunk faster than Britain could replace them. Rationing tightened. Meat became scarce. Fresh beef and pork all but disappeared from civilian diets. British morale depended not just on victory, but on survival. Spam filled the gap. It arrived in enormous quantities from the United States, unaffected by long sea journeys or disrupted cold chains. British civilians might not have loved Spam, but it kept them fed. It appeared in stews, sandwiches, pies, and breakfasts. It became so common that it entered jokes, songs, and later cultural memory. Yet behind the humor was a hard truth. Without Spam and similar canned foods, Britain's food situation could have become catastrophic. For soldiers, Spam was everywhere. In North Africa, where heat destroyed fresh food in hours, Spam endured. In the jungles of the Pacific, where humidity rotted supplies and refrigeration was nearly impossible, Spam survived. On remote islands, cut off from regular resupply, Spam meant the difference between hunger and sustenance. It could be eaten cold, fried, chopped, or mixed into anything available. It required no preparation beyond opening the can. American forces quickly learned that while they might complain about Spam, it would always be there when nothing else was. This reliability shaped strategy. Military planners could deploy troops farther faster and for longer periods, knowing food wouldn't spoil en route. Operations that might have been delayed for supply reasons went forward because food was guaranteed. Logistics officers could calculate rations with confidence. When combined with other non-perishable foods like hardtack, powdered eggs, and canned vegetables, Spam formed the backbone of Allied field rations. Spam also played a crucial role in freeing up refrigeration capacity. Refrigeration was desperately needed for medical supplies, blood plasma, vaccines, insulin, and certain medicines. By relying on canned meat instead of fresh meat, Allied logistics could prioritize cold storage for items that truly required it. In this way, Spam indirectly saved lives far beyond the battlefield. In the Pacific Theater, Spam took on an even greater significance. Island-hopping campaigns placed American forces on tiny, isolated pieces of land with no infrastructure. Supply lines stretched thousands of miles across hostile waters. Fresh food was almost non-existent. Spam arrived in crates, dropped from ships or planes, sometimes becoming the primary protein source for weeks at a time. Soldiers grew tired of it, invented nicknames for it, and joked endlessly, but they ate it. And because they ate, they fought. Even Allied prisoners of war, when fortunate enough to receive Red Cross packages, often found Spam inside. In camps where starvation was common, a single can could mean survival. Spam wasn't limited to American forces. Through Lend-Lease, it reached Allied nations around the world. Soviet troops received it. Resistance groups sometimes got it. Civilians in liberated areas encountered it. In many places, Spam was the first taste of reliable meat people had had in years. Of course, Spam had a psychological cost. For soldiers, eating the same food day after day wore on morale. Letters home complained about it. Jokes became darker. Some veterans later said they avoided Spam for decades after the war. But even these complaints underline its importance. The fact that Spam was constant, unchanging, ever-present, meant it was doing its job. Wars are not won by comfort. They are won by endurance. From a logistical standpoint, Spam represents something often overlooked in military history, the power of mundane efficiency. While tanks and aircraft dominate headlines, wars are decided by supply chains. Germany had powerful weapons but struggled with fuel and food shortages. Japan faced catastrophic supply failures by late war. The Allies, by contrast, flooded the world with material, and food was a crucial part of that flood. Spam symbolized America's ability to turn agriculture into ammunition. By war's end, Spam had reshaped global diets. Places like Hawaii, South Korea, and the Philippines integrated it into local cuisine, a legacy of wartime supply. What began as emergency rations became cultural staples. The war ended, but Spam remained. Looking back, it's easy to dismiss Spam as a joke, a punchline, or a curiosity, but that misses the point. Spam was not about taste, it was about certainty. In a war defined by uncertainty, of supply lines, of survival, of victory, Spam was one of the few things commanders could count on. Every can represented calories delivered across oceans under fire. Every shipment represented shipping space saved. Every meal represented a soldier who could keep going one more day. World War II was fought with courage, sacrifice, and strategy, but it was sustained with logistics. And in that quiet, unglamorous realm, Spam proved to be a true battlefield supply, a pink block of pork that helped keep the Allies fed, moving, and ultimately victorious. Every soldier hated it, and the war could not have been won without it.